Hello, my name is Beth. I'm doing a presentation on West Virginia, climate change and other environmental impacts. So welcome, thank you for being here. West Virginia, the mountain state, is aptly named. Tucked into the central Appalachian Mountains, to outsiders, West Virginia feels like a vast wilderness full of trees and forests. It also served as the nation's energy epicenter for decades, carving a landscape unique to the hills of this area. As we are well into the 21st century, it's time West Virginia carves out a new image for herself. Being one of the few states that separate surface rights from mineral rights, much of the state has drastically fallen into poverty, while the riches of the West Virginia are sent out of state in resources and money. West Virginia right now has an opportunity to regain a foothold by once again utilizing her strongest asset. This time, however, it will be West Virginia's greenery that draws them in, and not what's hiding underneath the ground. The mountain state needs to be protected, and we've given a part of her away for far too long. West Virginia holds several advantages when it comes to air quality. The dense, tree-covered, and wet state is able to hold at bay the fine particulate matter that the central portion of America is subject to. As a mountainous state, it is not an easy access location for the large agricultural productions of today. This makes the air relatively clean, just like the air in the rest of the upper Appalachian Mountains and the northeastern states. However, West Virginia is also well known for coal mining, and this has had a dramatic effect on the air quality. In a way, the dense forests are a blessing because they have compensated for the pollution stirred up during mining practices. There have been numerous studies about the increased cancer rates of coal miners. The coal mining industry has produced some very successful power plants that further pollute the air within the state. West Virginia is currently allowing the dirty coal left over, the waste coal, to be collected and burned in the power plants. The ash is then hauled back to the abandoned mines. This is an incredibly dirty practice that for most of the state is putting tremendous amounts of particulates in the air, not to mention the spontaneous fires that are starting underground in these old mines. The Ridge and Valley section that borders Virginia is the cleanest portion of the state, thanks to its location around and within national parkland. The majority of the state, rising above the Ohio River Valley, is not as lucky, still boasting breathtaking mountain views. The land is incredibly rich and still being exploited with not only coal mines of centuries past, but now through fracking. West Virginia boasts 34 natural gas facilities with 4 mineral mines open and operating. Aside from the power plants, almost all of the emissions coming from the state are from fracking facilities. This has caused a huge decrease in particulate matter. We do not know the long-term implications that come with fracking, but when measuring the health of the air, there seems to be a huge improvement over mining coal. However, the decrease in air quality is strong in some areas. The mountains do a wonderful job of masking some of the visible haze, but while driving mountain passes, you will find yourself going in and out of the thickness in the air as you cover different sides of the same mountain. There is an obvious difference between the latter part of the 20th century and the early part of the 21st. Fracking began in 2011, which coincides with the increase in air quality with the data collected. Again, we do not know the long-term effects of fracking, so even though it appears greener now, this may not be the case when other factors are calculated in. Though there are multiple fracking facilities in the state, they seem to have relatively low impact on the air quality. With all of the mining taking place, power plants, however, play the biggest role as polluters in West Virginia, and this is the case in other states as well. West Virginia is surprisingly volatile state. There's a large amount of seismic activity despite being far away from ancient fault lines. Some have theorized this to be caused from the high-powered injections of water being forced deep into the ground. The recorded earthquakes in West Virginia seem to be occurring almost monthly in recent years. According to the United States Geological Survey, almost 3/4 of the recorded earthquakes have occurred since 1997, and recording began in 1907. Now, fracking did not begin until 2011, and information for a potential cause for this uptake in earthquakes is lacking. Several news sources have reported over time that they're possibly mine explosions rather than actual earthquakes. To add to that, there's a mysterious line that up close appears to be a series of sinkholes. Satellite imagery, however, shows it being a 6-mile-long fold in the Earth's crust. To date, there is no explanation for it since it runs counter to the natural folds of the land. Sinkholes are certainly an issue in some areas, but the majority of the state does not lie over karsts or soluble rock like limestone. Only a fraction of the state, the section along the Virginia border, would be considered a sinkhole hotspot because that is the only location that sits over karst. This is because the valley and ridge portion of West Virginia lies above carbonate bedrock, yet sinkholes are happening all over the state. Landslides, according to the data, seem to be a non-issue in West Virginia, especially when compared to its neighboring state of Kentucky. This could be because the immense tree cover that exists throughout the state. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, Monongahela soil is the predominant soil here in West Virginia. It's considered prime farmland because it runs deep. The very top layer is hard and tends to restrict new root growth. Monongahela silt loam was formed millennia ago from shale and sandstone, and it occurs over ancient stream beds. A quick Google search will tell you that West Virginia has incredibly acidic soil that's terrible for crops, so there seems to be some conflicting information out there. What we do know is that our soil runs deep, and many states are not as fortunate to have such rich soil under their feet. West Virginia is the third most tree-covered state in the United States, only second to Maine and New Hampshire. This makes West Virginia an absolutely beautiful state to visit, especially if you're into the outdoors. Tree cover has remained relatively the same in West Virginia over the last 20 years. There's been virtually no tree cover loss or tree cover gain, likely in the last couple hundred years. This creates regularity for all of our residents, people and animals alike. West Virginia is not a large producer of crops and agriculture like the nearby states. Virtually none of the landscape has been altered in recent decades despite major agricultural shifts happening in other states around the country. The yellow here represents crop concentrations. This means that the majority of the ground and tree cover in West Virginia has been left as forest and woodlands. According to the United States Geological Survey, West Virginia is 15,530,324 acres. That is over 15.5 million acres. With only about 2.5 million acres developed, that leaves over 12 million acres of West Virginia wilderness. West Virginia is almost entirely covered in woodlands and forest. With a previous boom in fossil fuels feeding the country's energy needs, things have been shifting within the state as America moves away from burning up her natural resources. Instead, many municipalities in the state are now looking to tourism as a way to bring money in. With so much tree cover, West Virginia is a prime location for outdoor adventurists. West Virginia has over 31,000 miles of streams meandering and weaving through the 24,000 square mile state. There are several major rivers here, such as the Gauley, Ohio, and New River. And because West Virginia was untouched by glaciers, there's hardly any natural lakes within the state. The lakes you do see were most likely built to serve power plants or for supplying water to various municipalities. The West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, is in charge of ensuring the state maintains healthy waterways. Acid mine drainage has plagued many areas for decades. Treatment plants are now being set up in certain areas to improve the quality of water, such as in Muddy Creek, where a treatment plant was placed nearby. You can see a drastic improvement in just a few short years. Other projects taking place under the DEP are managing fish kills and algae blooms. Algae blooms are the result of changes in pH, temperature, nutrients, and salinity. In some areas, such as the Greenbrier River, residents have been complaining for years that the algae blooms are getting worse and starting sooner each year. Golden algae in the Dunkard Creek caused such a widespread fish kill that multiple state departments and the EPA had to get involved back in 2009. The Potomac Shenandoah fish kill of 2004 involved research of smallmouth bass and a condition called intersex. It is when fish exhibit both sexes, and it was found in 80% of the male fish that were tested. Scientists believe that it is caused by the fish's exposure to man-made hormones and synthetic compounds that mimic hormones. Although undetermined as to why the fish are being exposed to chemicals that disrupt their hormones, many believe it's from sewage runoff from water treatment centers. The most viable theory is that the synthetic hormones are coming from birth control pills. The Underground Injection Control Program, IUC, was set up to ensure that drinking water will be safe from fluids injected underground. Interestingly, the Water and Waste Management oversees Class 5 wells, along with improved sinkholes, agricultural drainage wells, industrial disposal wells, septic systems, and stormwater wells. They are not, however, allowed to oversee Class 2 and Class 3 wells, which are instead managed by the Office of Oil and Gas. This means that an industry that uses disposal wells are also overseeing their own disposal wells and the environmental impacts that may be caused by using their disposal wells. This may be a reason why there's insufficient data for a portion of West Virginia's water supply. The Office of Oil and Gas is responsible for keeping records of processes or materials that could potentially contaminate groundwater. They're required to do their own quarterly inspections and their own maintenance, as well as their own spill cleanups. State law allows for variances to be granted. If contamination at a site is deemed to be too advanced to clean up, then a variance will be granted, as long as it's proven that it is for public interest rather than a means of not adhering to the Groundwater Protection Act. This leaves a lot of gray area within the West Virginia Code 22-12-5. West Virginia has 14 Superfund sites. This is a relatively low number compared to other states and territories. It's possible this low number is due to all the self-regulation that is happening within the aforementioned industries. This could present a major problem if contaminated sites go untreated. especially if private wells are near the area. Many homeowners in West Virginia rely on wells or mountain springs for their water needs. Compare this to other states where municipal water sources dominate. It's clear that years of abuse on the state has harmed some of West Virginia's most beautiful assets. The quality of water sources, the quality of air, and an uptick in seismic activity has certainly affected day-to-day life for the residents who call this state home. Positive action has already been taken in some areas, but there's much more data to be collected and much more to be researched. West Virginians need to adopt a single vision for their state. Do we want to keep the identity of coal miners with pick in hand, helmet, a dirty face, and lungs? Or are we ready to embrace a new identity of outdoor adventurists, taking up the image of whitewater rafters, zipliners, rock climbers, and cavers? The Outdoor Adventure campaign has worked incredibly well for states like Colorado and California. Can a similar movement work here in an eastern state? If there's any state that can pull it off, it would be West Virginia, with her rolling landscape and raging rivers. A new identity must arise from the coal dust for this to take place, and it's not going to be through fracking. West Virginians must embrace the fact that they have an incredible asset right in their own backyard. Switching ideas of what West Virginia represents will allow money to flow into the state while honoring her natural resources. The current scenario has money flowing out of the state in addition to a dented environment. The new image empowers those that call West Virginia home. The old image makes calling West Virginia home feel awkward with stripped resources and unfettering poverty. It's clear from an environmental standpoint and economic standpoint where West Virginia needs to head. Now, more than ever, it is time to make changes at the community level, changes that will forever keep West Virginia on the map. Even with a coal miner bracing our state flag, we can make this happen. Wait, is that a coal miner? Or an outdoor adventurer? Perhaps a caver? Companies reimagine their images all the time, so why can't we? Thank you.